From the European Parliament in Brussels, this is Raw Politics. It is time to meet our panelists this evening. We have joining us Karen Melchior. She is a Danish MEP from the Renew Group. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Which of these stories are you watching closely?
I'm probably watching Iran mostly because we've been watching the others on repeat for the last 3 years, especially Brexit. So Iran is new and exciting, a bit too exciting for the people living in the Middle East.
All right. OK, also joining us, Matt Carthy. He's an Irish MEP with the European United Left. What about you, Matt?
Well, obviously, I'm Irish and I'm following the machinations from Boris Johnson's visit to Dublin, where, once again, he has no answers as to how he's going to solve the problems related to the border that's imposed in our country.
Well, we'll get to what you think of Boris's visit to Ireland. All right. And also joining us, John Tennant. He is a British MEP from the Brexit Party. What about you, John?
Well, basically, I've been watching a lot of the machinations been going on in Parliament over Brexit, and I've been keeping a keen eye on that. Yeah.
All right, Brexit still dominating last week and this week, and that's exactly where we begin tonight. Rebel MPs in London could get their wish tonight as a bill blocking a no-deal Brexit is set to become law, and it would force British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to seek yet another extension from the EU. But he's still adamant that that won't happen. And in a second vote, Mr. Johnson will try again tonight to win a snap general election before Parliament is suspended until October. I want to bring this up to the bigger picture of what Boris Johnson is going to do next, for example.
I think he's going to use this visit to Dublin as an excuse for going back to a deal. It seems to me it's a parachute for him to be able to go back on saying, I don't really care about whether we get a deal or not, to say it's actually really important to make a deal and I will make certain compromises to achieve
What
that.
about this threat of under no circumstances is he going to come to the EU to ask for an extension? Is this just him trying to get leverage back on his side?
I think it's bluster.
You think it's bluffing?
I think it's just him being Boris and it's theatrics that the rest of Europe is pretty tired of watching. I mean, it's very sad for the people that are being kept hostage by this in the UK and Ireland and UK citizens in Europe, in the rest of Europe, continental Europe. But the rest of us are getting pretty tired of it.
So, do you believe that he would rather die in a ditch than come here? I think that those are the words that he used.
I think he had a political strategy that unravelled last week, and I think his political strategy was to create the impression. Who knows? You know, in Ireland, we're used to British politicians breaking laws and promises and agreements, whether or not they will do
but this is a big deal in breaking a law like this.
In relation to a law that has been passed by Westminster pertaining to England is another story. We just don't know.
So if he does, you know, there are warnings that we've seen coming saying, you know, he might even go to jail for contempt, or, you know, what do you make of that? I mean, this is a big deal if he doesn't.
It is a big deal. It is a big deal.
If Parliament passes.
What's fundamentally happened is Parliament is now the real government, and they're handing more decision-making over to the European Commission, particularly on the extension date. Now, that basically shackles the Prime Minister. So effectively, we don't really have a Prime Minister. So should he
ignore that?
Well, I think I don't think he really wants to ignore it. I think what he really wants is a deal that only removes the backstop. That's not really palatable for us because about £39 billion, common fisheries policy, and there's a long list, but just removing the backstop is not good enough.
But obviously, there's the EU side to this as well. I mean, Boris Johnson can say what he wants, and then the EU would have to respond. The French foreign minister already said, well, you know what, unless anything changes, the answer is no. Do you think that what scenario will the EU be more open to the idea of extending? Or is it even likely that they won't say yes?
I mean, we need to have a serious partner on the other side of the table, and at the moment we don't have this. Yes, it seems like the House of Commons is running the UK government more responsibly than the UK government is doing. And Article 50 is, I mean, it's been set in motion, so the UK will actually leave the European Union without a deal.
So can the EU say no to an extension? And
yes.
Would they?
But they won't.
But they won't. You see, you don't think it's going to happen?
I don't think so. For the reason being that, as somebody who's often critical of the European Union, I think the European Union is actually showing more consideration for the people.
So even if nothing changes, they would say yes?
I think so. I think, particularly in the circumstances which we're in now, where there is a prospect, and it's not for us to assess where the numbers will fall in a post-general election. But if there is a prospect of another government in place, it might have a different negotiations tactic or agree to a second referendum. And all these options will be on the table. I can't see a circumstance in which the European Council won't agree to an extension. But I think it will be clear at that point, and for Brexiteers, that every time they come back to the negotiating table, they're coming back in a weaker position because they clearly haven't been able to identify a strategy. As I say, from the very first moment that Theresa May triggered Article 50, there has been a contradiction at the heart of it in relation to Ireland in particular, where they have said we want to have our own independent trade policy, but we want to avoid a border in Ireland.
And what we're watching for today, because there's still, you know, the snap general election still on the table, what we're watching for today, when you're watching this, what do you think the likelihood of that is? Is it going to be before that date, after that date? What do you think?
I don't think they're going to let a general election happen before the 19th of October.
But can they? I mean, yes, they won't let it. I mean,
they won't let
what does that
them,
mean?
no. Because, I mean, again, the Labour Party have been campaigning for years.
So he's going to lose this. Boris Johnson is not going to get the advantage that he wants.
They're against an election. So it's clearly that Remain are doing everything they possibly can to impede the process of Brexit. And that, you know, this is why we say in the Brexit Party that we want a clean break. Let's just have a no deal.
Brexit with no deal is not going to be a clean
negotiate
break.
a free trade arrangement.
From Dublin, the news from Dublin today was that Brexit without a deal is not going to be a clean break. You will have all of the problems that are around the border.
So there's no such thing as a clean break.
There is no such thing as a clean break.
It's a lot better than the withdrawal agreement.
Well, you have the withdrawal agreement or you have chaos. And I think Boris Johnson is also trying to create more and more chaos in order to save himself.
So all of this is a strategy from what you were watching.
It is strategy and theatrics.